Hi everybody, it's Joni here. Welcome back for another painting tutorial in acrylics. Today I'm going to be showing you how to paint a pretty waterfall scene with some blossoming trees. And I'm going to be painting this on a black canvas. Now you can paint yours on a white canvas as well if you want. I prefer black canvases for many of my paintings because they add so much depth and shadows instantly, so you can create a lot of light and dramatic paintings on a black canvas. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go through the colors and the brushes that we're going to be using, and I'll also have a full list below this video in the description box if you just click down below, and it'll all pop up for you. Quinachrodone magenta, compost blue 1, light olive green, phthalo green, burnt sienna, and yellow ochre. I'm going to be using a 1-inch mop brush for bushes and blending the background, so I may have 1 to 3 of those that I might need. And I have a number 10 angle brush for waterfalls. I'll be using my number 50 Filbert brush for the sky and laying down large areas of color. And I'll be using a number 4 Filbert brush for some smaller details, flower petals, rocks maybe. And then a number 2 liner brush for some little branches and delicate looking tree trunks. I'm going to begin the painting by wetting the canvas with a little bit of water, spreading it around evenly with my large brush before I come in with my sky color. I'm going to be using my compost blue, I'll just call it blue, and some white. Now adding a little bit of water to your canvas before adding paint can really help extend your acrylics and the drying time. Okay, so let's go in, take some blue. I'm going to start right here in the middle. This is going to dry darker over the black. So what color you see here now is going to be a few shades darker. Where I want it to be lighter, I'll add some white. So I'm going to come in without washing my brush off. I've still got a little bit of blue in there, and I'm going to use the blue that I've already placed down here and just work that in. Add a little bit more water. A little bit more white. Now I think we have a nice blending there. I sometimes like to use my dry and clean mop brush to soften any harsh lines, but I think it looks pretty soft already. So I've saved myself a step, and I'm just going to come in and add a little bit more of what's left in my brush over top of this blue area here. Okay, now I'm going to take some white, and I'm going to just start coming in off the top here on a little bit on an angle, and I'm going to start to kind of shake and pull down. This is going to be our very first layer of waterfalls. I'm going to add a little sweep down here, maybe a few more little sweeps, hidden waterfalls in between our bushes and trees. I'm going to rinse this brush out, dry off most of the water, but it's still a little bit damp, and then I just want to take a little bit of blue and white and just a little bit of that magenta. So what I'm going to do is just come down here and sweep that soft, beautiful purple color that we made right down below, and then I'm going to sweep across like this. I'll rinse my brush off once more, and we're going to completely dry this off and then start coming in with some trees. Okay, so now that this is dry, I'm going to come in with a mop brush. My mop brush is dry, and I'm going to create a shade of green by mixing my light olive green and my phthalo green. I'm going to take just a little bit of my burnt sienna and mix that in. This is going to give us a darker, warmer shade of green. The phthalo green is a cool, more of an emerald shade, and this will give us more of an earthy green. So we're going to come in and just start tapping in some bushes and trees, just light little taps. You're going to leave some spaces through, and we're just going to go in between our waterfalls. I'm going to take a little bit more to make this darker, the phthalo and the burnt sienna. You get a really nice deep dark green here. You can also add a little bit of black to your phthalo green, but this will make it a little bit warmer. Whereas if you add black to your phthalo, it's just going to make a darker shade of the phthalo green. Okay, so I'm going to make really dark in this area here. I'm going to add a few little ones in here as well. And take a little bit more of the burnt sienna, and we're just going to add these little lines like this way and that way. You can have a little curve to them if you want. Pardon me. This is just going to make it look like some rocks. And I'll take a little bit of the yellow ochre, mix that with pull a little bit of that burnt sienna in there. So this is what my brush looks like. It's not loaded with too much paint. A lot of beginners think they need way more paint than what they actually need. So keep that in mind and remember, you don't need as much as you think. So I'm going to continue going back to the dark green that I made with the burnt sienna and the phthalo green, and we're going to come in and continue tapping in some bushes and trees. We'll add our tree trunks and branches in a little bit. Okay, let's come in this area here and add some more on an angle. And I'm just going to go around in light little circles like this with the leftover paint in my brush, which isn't very much at all. And just brush over a little bit. This is just going to tint the edges of our little pool down here. I'm going to rinse this brush out because it's lost its shape now from all the paint and overworking it. So I've always got a few of these brushes on hand, and I recommend, if you like using mop brushes, that you should have a few as well on hand. Okay, so I've got my next mop brush here. This one's a little bit bigger, and it's just honestly the first one that I grabbed, but you can use something a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to come in and just pull into the pile so I don't overload my brush. I'm going to add a little bit of white. Again, just pull in and mix those colors. You want to make sure you have a little bit of white in there. Look at it, looks like a bush already just from kind of tapping it around and mixing it. You want to add a little bit of white in there so that it dries to a nice bright green. And then we just want to add a little highlight over part of these bushes and trees. We're just wanting to add some sunlight here. I'm going to add a little bit more white, and we'll hit these areas up here with some brighter highlights. Want to feel that sunlight on them. Okay, we'll just get a little bit down here as well. And then we're going to move over to this area here, apply pressure using part of the brush. So I'm pushing on an angle like this. I'm going to take a little bit of the phthalo green in there, mix that in, and look at this beautiful bright ivy green that we've got now. Let's include some of that. And just brush out a little bit over those other areas. Okay, I'm going to rinse this brush out. And let's come in with our liner brush. You want to get it wet, make sure you have enough water in it. And we'll take the phthalo green and our brown, burnt sienna, have it on the end of the brush, and we'll start adding a few wiggles, kind of scoop and then go up, wiggle, wiggle, reload, light pressure, and shake a little bit to get some more of a natural feel to those branches and tree trunks. Okay, we'll add in a little bit in here as well. A little bit more water in here. Wiggle, wiggle. I'm changing the direction of my tree trunks as I get over here in this far left side. I'm bringing them up vertically, and here more diagonally. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more brown and a little bit of yellow ochre. And I just took both colors and I'm going to kind of just twist and roll my brush around over part of these tree trunks and branches. Just add a little bit of color in here. Okay, I'm going to take my small Filbert brush now and pull in a little bit of green, both greens, and a little bit of the brown. And I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of moss or something that this tree looks like it's stable and growing out of. And then we'll add a few little highlights with a brighter green, that white mixed with that light olive green. Okay, so I'm going to add another highlight, and I'm going to be using another clean and dry mop brush. I'm going to use more white this time with light olive green. Okay, and I'm just going to tap where I want it to be the brightest. Let me just take a little bit more. Again, this is going to dry a little bit darker, so that's why I want to add a little bit more light to the tops of these trees. You don't want to highlight every part of your tree because you need shadows in order to make the highlights stand out. They both need each other. Okay, so I'll rinse this brush out. And I'm going to start coming in with more of our waterfall. The next layers I'm going to be using my number 10 angle brush. These are great brushes. Dagger striper brushes are great for waterfalls as well. And I'm going to come in with some white on the end of my brush, a little bit of water in there just to help pull the brush and the paint out. And I'm going to start up here on an angle, pull down and shake a little bit to get that movement in there, make them look kind of ruffly. And I found for myself that's what tends to work the best. A little bit of water again. Now if you have a little touch of blue in there, like I just picked up a little bit of blue, that's fine. Okay, we're just going to pull down some streaks here for some more kind of blurry, soft waterfall areas. I'm going to take a little bit of blue, take a little bit of magenta, and I'm going to start adding a little bit more down here. I just think a little bit of purple down in this area will look really pretty. Okay, I'm going to mix up a little bit more, take a little bit of water. So blue, magenta, and white. I'm going to come from this side. I'm going to change the angle, so I'm going to turn it over. I was doing it like this before with the pointy longest end to the right. Now I want to come over to this side and add a little bit right there, leaving all that dark underneath because I want to have those rocks and hints of those rocks and shadows in there. And I'm going to go side to side, add some extra blue and magenta, less water, less white, more of a dry brush. Okay, a little bit of water in my brush now. And I'm just gonna kind of slice through in between, partially over the blue underneath. Then I'm gonna pick up just a little bit of the burnt sienna and the green. And I'm just gonna, lightest pressure, just come in here and add a little bit here and there. Rinsing my brush out. I'm gonna come in with a little bit of the light olive green, that lightest, brightest highlight shade that we used with the white. It's got like a yellow base to it, so it helps to give us a nice warm light at the top here. Okay, now clean brush, we're gonna add some turquoise. So we're gonna make turquoise with phthalo green and some white. Just a little bit more in here, a little bit more white. Get it on the end of your brush. And we're gonna add hints of this in here now. And then just light little taps and flutters with your brush for the base. And you can make a little bit of a deeper shade if you want. Add a little hint of that here and there. Little wiggle and squiggle, just with the pointy end of the brush. I'm going to bring in a little bit more light here with my blue and white in the corner, and then just gently work that out. Just to make it a little bit brighter. A little bit brighter there. This might just look like little clouds. And then more white. Choose a few spots to be more generous with that white. Nice and bright. And then the rest down here is more in shadow and cool tones. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is start coming in with some flowering trees here. We're gonna keep this impressionistic, so it'll make you think that maybe they could be cherry blossom trees, maybe they could be magnolia trees. But I'm gonna take this small filbert brush and I'm gonna start with the tree trunk, and I'm gonna be using some burnt sienna, some phthalo green. I'll also be using some yellow ochre and a little bit of white pretty soon, but we're going to start with this dark base. And I'm going to come in right here and make this pretty thick, pretty wide. Okay, and then kind of just patchy like this. And then we're going to bring it up, over, up, curl, and down like that. Now, if you want to draw yours out first, that's fine. If you want to change your shape up a little bit, that's fine. It's going to look pretty no matter what, so don't spend too long trying to copy exactly the same exact shape. I'm going to make this a little thicker, and then I'm going to let off on the amount of pressure and then just kind of twist and pull. Okay, so I'm going to exaggerate the curves by dipping that under there, bringing that up over. Dipping under here, bringing this up over a little more, over, down. See how that gives it a little bit more shape? Scoop down here a little bit, bring that up. Let's pull in a little bit of yellow ochre and burnt sienna, and just start making it kind of patchy, soft. Don't overwork. Just kind of put it on there and leave it. Kind of reminds me of the trees that we have here on Vancouver Island. The bark of the trees are really neat. They peel and they leave neat colors, kind of like rainbow eucalyptus trees that I've seen in Hawaii. Not as colorful, but definitely just as beautiful. Okay, so just adding a little bit of this color here. I'm going to pick up some this lovely burnt sienna that's got so much warmth and red in it. really complementary with all the green that we've got. Okay, and then I'm going to come in down here and add another one, not as quite as big. And we'll bring that out in front of the, just a little bit peeking out in front of that waterfall. Let's pull in some yellow ochre burnt sienna. And add some of that on the top here. Now I could use my liner brush for this as well, but if you don't have one, you can just use less pressure and just the tip of your Filbert brush. I'm going to have another one coming down here. Burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and then maybe one more right down here. I'm going to reload my burnt sienna in just a minute. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out. Okay, we're going to take some more with those colors. Leave it kind of patchy. So because we have it darker in the background here, behind this tree, we need a little bit more highlights, so more of the brown and that yellow to make it show up. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow in here. I know it's going to dry a little bit darker, so I want to have that a little bit brighter in some areas. I'm going to come in with some thin branches now with my liner brush, and we'll use the same colors: green, brown, little twist and wiggle. I can use a little bit more of the green and make it darker right in here because we've got a lighter background. I'm going to use a little bit more green and make some of these areas of this tree trunk and the bark a little bit darker. Okay, let's go into our brown and yellow ochre as we come down here. Then the green where it's lighter here. And to make it really pop out, we'll take the green and come underneath. And some depth and some shadow. Let's add a little bit to this one as well. Now I'm being a little kind of shaky and loose with my application here and my brush strokes so that it has more of like a natural, I'm not overthinking it and trying too hard. So it has more of a natural feel to it, somewhat a little bit messy. Okay, now I'm going to take some yellow ochre, a little bit of white, and we're going to add some light, just little patches of light here and there. A little bit more white in here. We can use the color that's already on there. Pick that up with our white and pull that along. Okay, I'm going to dry this off a little bit, and then we're going to start coming in with our flowers. Okay, so like I mentioned before, we're going to paint these flowers impressionistically, so just expressively, loosely, not a lot of detail. It's more about the color, the placement, and just a push and a little dab and a little pull. So we're going to start with some magenta. And we're just going to start tapping wherever we want to have a flower. So we'll have some little buds that are going to be here. And then we're just going to start pushing, tapping. I want to have it just stacked with flowers on this other side back here. And then after we do this, we're going to come in with some white and we're going to brighten up the petals and make lighter areas. Okay, let's add just a little bit down here as well. Might add a few extra branches after, because this is kind of like flowers floating. Okay, let's take some white now, and we're going to start above and then kind of just pull and flick down. Take a little bit more on the tip of your brush, above the pink, pull and flick down. Go in all directions if you want. You want to add this white to your pink while it's still wet. That way you pick it up, you pick that magenta up, and then you get a nice blending without making 100 different shades of pink on your palette. Look at how many we've got just painting wet into wet. Now you might want to bring some over top of part of your branches and tree trunk to make it look a little bit more natural. I'm gonna have some down here in the water. I'm gonna take just a little bit more of the pink. And then I'm going to pull in a little bit more white and bring this up, bring some up higher. Okay, so I'm going to start working on this side now. Okay, we've got some of our pink. We're going to add this. Going to create a little curve here, exaggerate this branch, bring it up a little bit more. Go into my white. I'm going to come in on the top and add another tap and dab of white. Okay, and let's move over to this area here now. Got a little bit of that white coming out. And just keep dabbing. Once you start getting into it and painting lots of these, you'll loosen up and paint them a little bit quicker. And not that you need to, you don't have to be really quick. I mean, you do want to paint wet and wet, so you want to keep up with the drying time of your acrylics. And maybe your acrylics aren't drying as quickly as they normally do. Then you can take your time a little bit, right? But I find that like when I'm really into my paintings, I tend to paint a little bit quicker because I'm enjoying it so much and I'm excited to add the next layers. I'm gonna come in and add a little bit more white. Again, I know this is gonna dry a little bit darker. Acrylic paint always does. It can help applying gesso to your canvases beforehand. And I'm gonna add a little bit down here. Gesso provides a nice barrier between the canvas and your paint. And although canvas that you're purchasing might say that it's primed already, it's not really the same as gesso. Primer and gesso are different. So just keep that in mind. If it's something that you are noticing you're having trouble with, you know, if you're disappointed with your colors, your paintings drying a little bit duller, like duller and not looking the same, then that's probably what's going on. Is you may just need to get some gesso and apply 1 to 2 coats. I've got a video on how to apply it. Okay, I'm going to come in here now. And we'll add some flowers to this one at the top. Got a little bit extra here, so I'm just going to tap that there. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out. I've got quite a bit building up in there and it's been in there for a while, so I don't want to ruin my brush because the paint will start to dry. Up in the ferrule here, the paint gets pushed up there. Okay, I'm going to just pull. If you want your flowers to look more like magnolias, then you'll add kind of longer, narrower pulls. So the most beautiful flowering magnolia tree here in our little island last night. And it's funny where it is too, because it's by this kind of ugly, dingy gas station. And then you just see this just gorgeous magnolia tree. And you don't really realize how big the flowers are on them until you're standing right up to it. They're huge. There's lots of different varieties of magnolia trees as well, but this one in particular really took my breath away. I wish that I had one in my yard. We've got a few flowering plum trees and a nectarine tree. I haven't had any nectarines on it yet, but it flowers every year and very fragrant and bright pink. Okay, so now I'm going to rinse my brush off and I'm going to add some cool shadows to my petals here, and I'm going to go back to this light kind of purple color, blue, magenta, and white. Make that a little bit brighter. Again, because I know it's going to dry darker. So a little bit more generous with the white. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. Dab, dab, dab. Got a little bit too much there on working up in the ferrule again. And maybe a little bit in here. I want to make a little bit more purple color. A little bit more saturated, less white. And then I'm going to add the last of the branches. Cleaning that brush out. Remember to wash your brushes out. Liner brush, green and brown, water. You got to have the water in there to help the water will help release that paint. Take a little bit of yellow and the brown. And let's go up here. Work on this one area here where it's kind of thicker and then thin too fast. Add a little bit of brown there. Mix it up, get it on the edge of my brush. If it doesn't show up, add a little bit more of the yellow. Now, I was gonna just use the magenta and the white, but I think I want to add a little bit of my, this is, you can barely read it. It's Luminous Opera. Same as fluorescent neon pink. And I want to just add a little bit of this to catch some sunlight. So this is a much warmer pink. So if we take this with some white, get a little bit on the end of the brush, and add a few little sweeps of this, little dabs, then some more white in there. It just feels a little bit brighter and sunnier up here. I'm going to add just a little bit here, leaving this area more in shadow. See, when you include cool and warm shades into your paintings, that's when you're really gonna take your paintings to the next level. Learning how to paint light is not as hard as you think. And remember what I said, including warm and cool shades is really how you're going to do it. Okay, so we've got our warm here. Now we feel a sense of light and a sense of some shadow. That makes the painting more inviting. I have one more color that I'm going to use, and it's another one of my Luminous colors. And it's my Luminous Lemon. I've got a big tub of it here because it's one of my favorites. Luminous Lemon. I'm going to just use a tiny, tiny bit of this with some white. And let me just pull this out here so you can see. Let's take just another little dab of that. Remember where we applied our brightest shades to feel the sunlight on these trees back here? This is going to be the last and final highlight. And already you can see what a difference that makes. I mean, you can add more yellow if you want. It's going to just be really, really saturated, but you can even add like use it as a glaze, kind of filter over without any white. But if you're wanting to add a glaze, make sure that you're adding it to a dry underpainting. I'm using less white in this area here as we get further down. Okay, I want to thank you guys so much as always for joining me. I hope you have fun painting yours and that you learned a lot from this video. Don't forget to check out my Patreon where you can unlock almost 1,000 videos now, exclusive tutorials, all commercial and advert free, so there's no interruptions. There's beautiful tutorials I've made especially for all of my Patreon members there. Thank you to all of you who are members on Patreon. It's because of you that I'm able to create all of these tutorials and videos and share them with everyone around the world, because it is my dream and my goal to spread the the happiness that painting brings us all. It's very healing and very, very healthy. So thank you guys all. You can check out the link below, and as little as $5 a month. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys all very soon in another video. Bye.